Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live discussion. We are going to talk about Argentina versus Uruguay. And by we, well, my name is Roy Nemmer of Mundo Albiceleste.com, and I am joined by none other than Osvaldo, also of Mundo Albiceleste.com. Osvaldo, welcome. How's it going?
A pleasure to be here, Roy. Yeah, I'm doing well. Very expecting this double match day of Argentina against two really tough rivals as Uruguay and Brazil. But I think these two matches are gonna be good for Argentina as a preview for the Copa America. After the World Cup, we've shown a very good level. But I think that the rivals maybe weren't the best as the one we faced in the last stages of the World Cup. So I think it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure. The upcoming two matches this month, Uruguay and Brazil, are at least on paper the more difficult ones for Argentina in the South American World Cup qualifiers. So it's going to be very interesting. We got a lot of topics to get to, a lot of things to get to. As always, wherever you are watching us, let us know in the chat. We always get people from all around the world, literally. But let's get to the game. Let's get to everything. So Argentina hosts Uruguay at La Bombonera, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. On Thursday, Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Buenos Aires time. And Osvaldo, safe to say this is probably Argentina's most difficult match in these World Cup qualifiers.
This one against Uruguay, or you're talking about Uruguay and Brazil?
Let's start off with Uruguay in
Okay,
general.
perfect. Yeah, I would say that the toughest match will be against Brazil in Brazil. But the one against Uruguay is gonna be tough for sure. On papers and how Argentina is playing, of course, we're the favorites, and more if we play at home. But Uruguay has really good players. In the World Cup, I don't think they show their full potential. Now they changed the coach, and now with Marcelo Bielsa, um, they hopefully for them they start playing better. Marcelo Bielsa in particular, I like him a lot as a coach. Of course, I wish tomorrow they don't win at all. But Uruguay and Marcelo Bielsa are two that I usually want them to do well. But for sure it's gonna be tough. They have players like Valverde and others that we're gonna talk about. But it's gonna be tough for me. I don't think it's the toughest rival. Brazil is always the toughest rival.
Absolutely, and I agree. And obviously, we mentioned Bielsa. We'll get to that in a sec. So we have George joining us from New York City, John all the way from Malaysia, Calvin as well. Welcome, Calvin. Welcome, everybody. And as always, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And yeah, I mean, we can't ignore Bielsa is a former Argentina coach. He's from Argentina. He comes from Newell's. Scaloni comes from Newell's. So there's a big connection there. And you mentioned some world class players. Luis Suarez is back in the team, and he's been in tremendous form for Gremio. And let's not forget, Uruguay are number 2 in the World Cup qualifiers so far. Argentina number 1, of course, but Uruguay are number 2, and it's tough. Argentina is coming up against Uruguay number 2, Brazil number 3, and again, on paper, I think the more difficult matches are coming up. And this is going to be a real test. This will be a really big test for Argentina. And not in terms of like they need the test to see where they are in terms of the level, absolutely not. But just maybe, and this is going to come out wrong or maybe a little bit arrogant, but how big or how little is the gap right now between Argentina and let's say the top 2 teams in South America? And that's going to be very interesting to watch, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, I think Argentina is at least one step over every single team in South America. Um, and yeah, I don't know exactly how many goals we are on top of these teams, but then you have to go play the matches. And Uruguay, as we were saying, they come from winning 2-0 against Brazil in Uruguay. They have players we already mentioned, Valverde, Suarez, but they have Darwin Nunez, which is having a good season in Liverpool. They have Araujo, which is one of the best center backs.
In the
Yes.
world.
Then they'll have, for example, Nathan Nandes, that is used to play in La Bombonera. He will go back after playing so many years with Boca Juniors. So De La Cruz, Pelistri, no, they have really good players.
They absolutely have solid players. Absolutely
Ugarte.
solid. Yeah, as well. Another one. And actually, well, a good question here by John. John's asking, does anyone know what Bielsa's record is against Messi? I remember Chile defeating Argentina in 2008, and that was Coco Basile's last match in charge of Argentina. I don't think he has a great record from what I remember. He won and lost a match in the World Cup qualifiers versus Argentina, and then also when he took charge of Athletic Bilbao in Spain, he may have won one match, but that was a pretty dominant Barcelona that was winning a lot. So Bielsa maybe not the best track record against Messi. And you mentioned all of those players, Osvaldo, world-class talent, honestly. I mean, you mentioned Araujo, who in my opinion is probably in the top 3 or at worst top 5 best center backs in the world, and I truly mean that. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Barcelona fan. He's extremely solid, extremely reliable. Let me ask you this, and maybe I'm putting you a little bit on point here, but when you talked about Nunez, we mentioned a little bit Suarez as well. How big of a test do you think this is going to be for Otamendi and Romero? Because I feel this is going to be just a battle. Like those 4 guys are going to kill each other on the pitch. I'm seeing some yellow cards.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen how Otamendi and Romero can play throughout these qualifiers and in the World Cup, but I think this is going to be even a harder test. They've done very well so far, but yeah, tomorrow they play against good strikers. I think that it's also fair to mention that I think, yeah, we talk about the good players from Uruguay, but I think Argentina, even in that, is one step above, because we talk about Luis Suarez, and Luis Suarez is having a great moment in the Brasileirao. If we compare to our strikers, for example, Julian Alvarez in Manchester City and Lautaro in Inter, there's like a gap. But for Otamendi and Kuti, it's gonna be a good test.
Yeah. No, I think so, and I'm very much looking forward to it. You mentioned Julian Alvarez, you mentioned Lautaro, and obviously the difference in gap. And this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the rumored kind of 11, or at least in attack. Nicolas Gonzalez, Julian Alvarez are both expected to start for Argentina. You would think, obviously, alongside Lionel Messi, which would mean that Di Maria would drop to the bench. Are you happy with this? Would you start Lautaro instead? Would you go Di Maria instead of Nicolas Gonzalez? What do you think of this? And everybody else as well in the chat, obviously, let us know.
Yes, I think Scaloni first of all chooses these 2 based on the opponent, on the rival. Nico Gonzalez, comparing him to Di Maria, he has a better defensive work. And also for Scaloni, let's remember that the last 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, I have to check this, but I'm almost sure that Nico Gonzalez was the starter for Argentina in the last qualifiers, in the last 4 games. So he's a player that Scaloni trusts a lot. But also at the same time, you have Di Maria, which according to him, it might be his last game at home with Argentina, because the next double match day would be after the Copa America. I think it would be like in September of 2024. So it can possibly be Di Maria's last game in Argentina. According to him, he in an interview just a couple of weeks ago said that after the Copa America he might retire from Argentina. So I think that Di Maria will see some minutes for sure. But I imagine him, and I think Scaloni imagine it the same way, him coming from the bench, maybe Nicolas Gonzalez doing the dirty work the first couple of minutes, and maybe then in the second half, Di Maria with more spaces, depending on how the game is, he can enter and do some damage in the Uruguay defense.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think that's a good way. Bringing on a fresh Di Maria. We're going to talk about is this Di Maria's last match in a little bit, but I'm happy with this, and I'm looking and I'm trying to double check, and I think you're right. I think Nicolas Gonzalez has started all 4 World Cup qualifying matches for Argentina. He scored, in the first match versus Ecuador, he did start, and then the second match he scored. Versus Bolivia he scored, and then the third match versus Paraguay he was in the starting 11, and the last match versus Peru he was in the starting 11. So I think you're right on that. 4 matches for him in a row. I'm seeing a couple of comments. Miguel writes, for example, he can't finish. It's very frustrating. The good thing about him is, he does get himself into goal scoring chances. He does track back. He does help. He does miss the odd chance, here and there, but in general, I think he is overall reliable, and he's very important to Scaloni's setup. Ratjit writes, Nicolas Gonzalez is very good with his spot jumps, which helps us during defending corners, which Scaloni likes, along with the workload he takes. So there is a lot for sure. He does bring a lot to the team. And I'm seeing some comments about Messi, about La Bombonera, and we're certainly going to discuss that. But you mentioned Di Maria, and this was we had a similar conversation probably around this time last year when Argentina faced, I think it was Venezuela, oddly enough, I think at La Bombonera, where we were saying, is this his last match for Argentina before the World Cup? Because it was a World Cup qualifier. Is this his last match? We know that wasn't the case. This could absolutely be the case, because the next friendly matches in March are going to be played in Europe, and then we get the Copa America. And then, as you mentioned, Di Maria has strongly hinted that the Copa America, that's it for him and Argentina. So he would retire from the national team, and that would be it. So this could be Di Maria's last match for Argentina. And it's crazy to think. It's really crazy to think the career he's had, that this could be it coming up at La Bombonera.
Yeah, for sure. It's for sure sad, but at the same time, it's a great ending for him in Argentina. Of course, we're gonna still see him hopefully in the Copa America and in the next couple of matches away. But yeah, I think he deserves tomorrow a standing ovation that he will probably receive in the second half. So yeah, it will be kind of emotional tomorrow too.
Yeah, it will be. It really will be. I think for a couple of us, I kind of want to mention this, but I kind of don't want to mention this. But this, depending on how things go and what happens and all that stuff, this could be someone else's last match with
That's
the
true.
national team in Argentina. We're not going to talk about that just yet, because it's going to change the mood very quickly. But it might not just be Di Maria, and I'm not saying Otamendi either. But
Yeah, no. I know what you mean. But in those cases of those players, Otamendi, Di Maria, Messi, I honestly think that I guess each case is different. But I don't know if they know for sure what is going to happen after the Copa America. And Messi was always very clear about that. Like, he's like, I'm going to see. We'll see how things go. There's no rush on taking any decision now because it wouldn't make sense. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And Di Maria, that is having a really good performances with Benfica. Benfica overall, maybe in the European competition, is not playing that well. But in the league, he's playing well. He had a good performance against the rival Porto, I think it was last month. And him along with Otamendi, both in the Portugal league, they're playing really well.
Yeah. Oh, both of them. And Otamendi, as much as Di Maria, obviously Di Maria maybe at a higher level to a certain degree, but they've gotten better with age. Like Otamendi was very good when he was in, I think, Atletico Mineiro in Brazil. Then he went to Valencia, was very good. Manchester City had his moments, and then suddenly he just kind of exploded. He got very, he stepped it up and he got better. And Di Maria, it's crazy to think that a lot of people thought that Di Maria's peak was 10 years ago, essentially, or almost 10 years ago, when he won the Champions League with Real Madrid, and then everything happened after that. But he's been getting better the last 3-4 years. I think Benfica is a perfect place for him. He's still playing at a high level. I think he could still offer a lot for Argentina, at least as a substitute. But obviously, we kind of understand the decision if he does decide to retire from the national team.
For sure. And I know it's talking ahead, but yeah, Di Maria could play, and I think Scaloni said this in today or yesterday press conference. Scaloni sees Di Maria playing either in the right side or left side, but I think he has played because of Messi, that he usually plays in the right side. He has played most of the time in that left side, and I think the successor there is between Nico Gonzalez and Garnacho, which this time he wasn't called up. But I think that spot, although Di Maria would be very difficult to replace, we have a couple of players that could try to do it in a similar way.
Yeah, no, of course, and let's not forget, Di Maria is, in my opinion, anyways, extremely underrated. Probably one of the more underrated players of his entire generation, and I truly, truly mean that. So replacing him with whomever it is, whether it's Nicolas Gonzalez or, like you said, Garnacho or whoever, it's not going to be easy, and it does, it takes a special talent to do that. So we'll see what gives with Di Maria, and ultimately who does end up replacing him. And going back a little bit to Otamendi, he's playing good. If Licha was healthy, he wouldn't be. Who knows? Who knows? Otamendi was selected ahead of Licha at the World Cup. He's been playing very well as well. So credit to Otamendi. Credit to
And let me say something that I think I said it. I think it was in the last live, but I think it's very important because sometimes, and I was one of those that during the World Cup I was saying, oh, after the World Cup maybe it's time for Licha Martinez in place of Otamendi, Nico Gonzalez or Garnacho in place of Di Maria, and like that. And the thing is that these players have continued showing, despite the age, that they're playing really well. And there's no rush of doing those changes, generational changes between the old and the young, because again, there's no rush, and these players are playing well and they give experience to the team. So I think that both Otamendi and Di Maria have gained that extra couple of matches because they're continue playing well in their clubs. When they come to Argentina, they do it brilliantly.
And again, I agree. Completely agree. And I was one of those as well that thought, hey, after the World Cup, okay, maybe that's it for Otamendi, kind of Di Maria as well. But they continue to do well. Di Maria made the transfer over to Benfica, or went back to Benfica. And you wouldn't drop him, but you would not drop Di Maria if you're Scaloni. So we'll see what happens with Di Maria. But fingers crossed he continues after the Copa America. But who knows?
Let's if you want, because before we were talking about Nico Gonzalez and Di Maria, and we didn't talk about Julian and Lautaro. And I want to ask you,
of course,
if for you is it good, Julian?
Oh, I think we lost you. I think we lost Osvaldo. Is it a possibility? Osvaldo, we lost you. Oh, there you are, Osvaldo. We're back. Technical difficulties, but we're back. All right.
Yeah.
So about Lautaro and Julian.
Yes. You want to go ahead?
Yeah. So in terms of why, because it did cut, so I didn't fully get the question.
Okay. Let me repeat it. Yeah, I don't know why the lights went off. Yesterday went off too, so I just changed the Wi-Fi to the data of my phone. So hopefully the lights don't go off because I don't have any other light. But I was asking you if you think that Julian should start as Scaloni thinks over Lautaro Martinez tomorrow.
Man, that's a very difficult one, and it's almost as if we continue to have this conversation because it's a good problem to have, right? I think Lautaro now is in a much better goal scoring form than Julian Alvarez. Alvarez is maybe playing better overall, even though the last couple of games he's been seeing a little bit less of the ball, but I think he's still playing well. Lautaro's just in better goal scoring form, and it's going to be interesting because I don't know if Scaloni, like if we spoke about, Julian potentially starting. If Julian starts against Uruguay, does that mean Lautaro starts against Brazil? Or do you start Julian against Brazil? Because he does a lot of running, and he already does a lot of running with Manchester City. So I'm happy either way, whether it's Julian or whether it's Lautaro that starts, or even both. It does not look like it will be both. But I'm happy with Julian, even though I think, and the numbers kind of say it, that Lautaro is maybe in a better goal scoring form. That's my opinion. Miguel says both start. What do you think, Osvaldo?
Yes, that's something that we discussed already about both starting. I think it's interesting to see how Scaloni, in those two doubts that he had between Di Maria Gonzalez and Lautaro and Julian, he chose the two that run the most defensively, or that they can have a better job defensively. I think that's interesting. I believe that if he thinks like that against Uruguay at home, he will think something similar against Brazil. Um, so it's gonna be interesting. Um, and the truth is also, yeah, Lautaro is in a better goal scoring shape, you would say. But with Argentina, also with Nico Gonzalez, they haven't played that well. They, for in my opinion, even though they didn't score, I think they play well. Uh, but Julian, maybe with Argentina in the World Cup for sure, and in the last couple of matches, have played a little bit better than Lautaro.
Yeah, and 1,000%. I'm with you on that one. I think in the last couple of months or last couple of matches for Argentina, or since last year's World Cup, Julian has been in better form for Argentina. But and there was a comment. It's right here. George says it. As soon as Lautaro is going to get that goal for Argentina, that's it. You just know he's going to go back to scoring. Regularly. And it's crazy that we have world class strikers. I mean, Lautaro leads, if I'm not mistaken, City with the goals. Julian is one of Manchester City's best players, and with the national team, for whatever different reason, they they can't seem to score. But yeah, This is a fun conversation to have. We have it often because it's a good one, and at the same time, it depends on the opponent, right? Um, I think he's going with Julian in place of Lautaro because Uruguay under Bielsa, they're gonna do a lot of running, they're gonna do a lot of pressing, and you're going to need someone to kind of counter that as well. And I think Julian maybe does that a little bit better than Lautaro. Not to say Lautaro doesn't do it well, but I think Julian does a slightly better job than that.
What I believe it is clear for Scaloni is that I don't see him starting both Lautaro and Julian.
Yeah.
At least from the beginning in any match. Maybe then, if in any match where one goal down, maybe they would bring both of them in. But as a first possibility, from what we saw so far, they haven't started, and we saw that in the last match days.
Yeah.
Julian and Lautaro were probably the two players with best form for Argentina, and they didn't start together. So I guess Scaloni likes to stick to that 4-3-3 that gave him a lot of results during the World Cup.
No, of course, and George says it. That in Scaloni we trust, and it's the way to look at things. And yeah, I think they started the match versus Paraguay, the match where Messi was out or didn't start. That was the match that they started together, and yeah, I thought they did well, but again, for whatever reason, none of them is really finding the back of the net. And it looks like we're getting some mixed kind of answers. So Oscar says he prefers Julian over Lautaro, but I think George probably prefers Lautaro over Julian. But hey, it's an interesting discussion to have. We've spoken about Lautaro, we spoke about Julian, we spoke about Nicolas Gonzalez, we spoke about Di Maria. There's one person in attack that we haven't spoken about, the alien, and that's Lionel Messi. And a lot of people like to bring this up on social media, and we'll talk about it here. It's his inactivity, right? His lack of playing time, let's say, with Inter Miami now that their season is over and they're not part of the playoffs. I actually think this suits Messi a little bit better than if he still had a lot of matches. What do you think of this as well?
Yes. First of all, yeah, he played just one friendly match. I think it was in the last 21 days. If I'm not mistaken, it was just a couple of days ago, and where he presented the Ballon d'Or. And yeah, I was there in the stadium. He lost 2-1. He didn't play very well. I was telling you how I had a woman, an old woman. I don't know where she was from, but she is not a soccer follower. It was those Messi followers that just buy the ticket to watch and see Messi. She was screaming to him, saying, like, please move, that we pay a lot of money to come here. And I look at her a couple of times, like trying to say, please, old lady, don't, because she was literally shouting the whole match. But yeah, he didn't play that well. But besides that game, what I read was that in the last couple of trainings with Inter Miami, physically he'd been playing really well, and he's been in a good form, at least in trainings. I saw also a couple of videos of, I think it was either today's or yesterday practice with Argentina, and he was good. Um, so for me, it doesn't worry me that much. I don't know about you, Roy. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I look, I'm gonna word for word, I'm gonna say what Miguel mentioned in the chat. The rest is a blessing in disguise for him. I truly think so. I think, he has played a lot of matches, right? Going back all the way to the World Cup. He had the World Cup and he continued with the PSG. And now it's almost like this is in a way almost like his first preseason. It's almost like a preseason for him, right? He played a match last week. Then he landed in Argentina, I believe, on Monday. Started training, trained yesterday, trained today, and look, Messi's sharp. We're talking about the best player in the world for many, myself included, the best player ever, the greatest of all time. So he knows what's going on. He knows his body. He knows his sharpness, so to speak. And let's not forget, in the last qualifiers, right, versus what was it, versus Paraguay, he didn't start. He was not 100% fit, and then he started the last match versus Peru, scored 2 goals. So he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Calvin says Osvaldo's keeping everyone in check. He absolutely is. He absolutely is. So yeah, no, I think it's going to be good for him. And the other thing for Messi as well is these 2 matches are his last matches or competitive matches until February, right? There's no more Inter Miami matches. There's no friendly matches. I think preseason or the actual MLS league, the league itself restarts in February. So we're probably going to get an all-out Messi type of thing.
That's true. Yeah, all his focus is in these 2 matches.
Oh yeah, and plus, well, I'm not skipping ahead, but Brazil at the Maracanã, he's going to show up. Like, he's gonna want to do something. We kind of alluded to this earlier. Uruguay, Brazil, toughest rivals in this qualifiers. Now, we spoke about Uruguay, talking a little bit about Brazil. They're not doing very well in these qualifiers. They're third, but dare I say they're lucky to be in third place in the qualifiers. Do you, and you don't have to answer because the whole jinxing and everything, but do you expect the match versus Brazil to be the most difficult match Argentina has had so far?
Yeah, I think it should be. Although, based on what I saw, the last match day between Uruguay and Brazil, I saw Brazil playing a little bit better than Uruguay playing a little bit better than Brazil in these qualifiers. But I think playing at the Maracanã, the classic against Brazil, yeah, for sure it's gonna be the toughest match at least this year. They will play against Colombia at the same time we're playing against Uruguay, so we'll probably not be able to watch that match, the game. But yeah, they're not in a good form. But it's Brazil. They just brought the player from Palmeiras that Real Madrid just bought, Hendrik.
Yeah.
He's really good. I don't know if he's gonna play at least a couple of minutes. But yeah, they're Brazil. They have good players. They don't have Neymar. That's true. But they have Vinicius, Rodrigo, and many other great players.
Yeah, I know they have a lot of good players. One of my closest friends, a very good friend of mine, is a Palmeiras fan, and I think I've said this before. I actually have a Palmeiras jersey here because of him. He got it for me from Sao Paulo. So I heard about him a while back, and I have videos and everything. He's obviously very, very talented. There's a reason why, he's in the team at 17. That's cracking Brazil. But this is gonna be revenge for them. I know not many people like that word, but this is going to be revenge for the Copa America, the final at the Maracanã. This is going to be revenge for the, what happened last year, or 2 years ago, sorry, the match that got postponed, right? Not at the Maracanã, but still in Brazil. So there's going to be a lot of stuff going on here. They don't have Neymar, as you mentioned, but they still have very, very good players. And Brazil's going to be out for blood because Argentina getting a win again at the Maracanã in the World Cup qualifiers, I don't know what's going to happen to those Brazilian players. So, but we'll see what happens.
No, for sure, and I guess the press and the fans from Brazil are not that happy with how their team is playing. Of course, Brazil is gonna qualify to a World Cup. That there's no doubt about that, and even more now with this new World Cup where a lot of teams from South America qualified. But yeah, Brazil needs to at least. They always try to be the first in the qualifiers and try to play well to get into a good form before the Copa America. So yeah, there will be a lot of pressure, more for them than for us in their game, but there's gonna be a lot of pressure.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think so as well. I think so as well. Oscar says Bielsa's Uruguay will be a bigger challenge than Brazil. If that match, if the match against Brazil maybe was not at the Maracanã, I would probably agree. But the fact that it is at the Maracanã and there's the whole Copa America, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. We got a question here from Rashid. Very good question. So, do you think facing them back to back is a disadvantage for Argentina or an advantage? Because there's two ways of looking at it. Knock on wood, we're going to talk about one, but if Argentina get the win versus Uruguay, then you have all the momentum in the world already behind you going up against Brazil. But what do you think, Osvaldo and everybody else? What do you think?
It is a good question. I guess it depends how you look at it, as you said. If you ask me, I think it's a disadvantage. You always want to play those teams not back to back, not in just a gap of 4 or 5 days. But yeah, it depends a lot of how you do in the first match, because soccer and sports in general are very mental in that way. And Argentina is playing great, but if they lose against Uruguay, which is a possibility because Uruguay is a great team, then you have to go and play against Brazil in Brazil, and yeah, Argentina is playing very well, but it's a very mental sport. So I guess it depends a lot of in that first game.
Yeah, I agree. And just going back a little bit, guys. So you did mention Brazil faces Colombia. So while we face Uruguay, Brazil is going to be away to Colombia in Barranquilla. And that match is actually 2 hours before our match.
Perfect.
So we'll be able to watch that. Yeah, 2 hours
Good.
before. So that match finishes and we get to watch.
Great, because I'm actually seeing right now the match day, and yeah, it says the same time. So I guess it's a mistake from this website.
Let me see. Hold up. Maybe. Oh no, wait. I don't know. Google says it's the same time, but Wikipedia has it at a different time. So I don't know. We'll have to see. We might have to confirm that.
Yeah.
We might have to confirm that. But still. But going back to the question itself, is it a disadvantage? The fact that Brazil are away to Barranquilla or away to Colombia in Barranquilla, I think that's as difficult as a match as they could probably get, right? In a way, outside of playing Argentina or Uruguay. So it's not like they have, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it's not like they're playing Bolivia at home and then they're playing us. You know what I mean? So they do have a difficult match.
Yeah, that's something Uruguay is doing, because Uruguay is playing against us, but then they're gonna play against Bolivia at home.
At home in Montevideo.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say something, I forgot.
It happens. We're live. It happens. And also, everybody, make sure to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. We are, in all likelihood, we're gonna do a review, right? A post show after the game, right? We'll do all that. So tune into that, everybody. And Miguel, all right. So let's look at this. Miguel says, "Rip the bandage off fast. Playing those two, it will help us modify and improve our play." That's certainly another way of looking at it too. And yes, this is a very good point. So Enzo Fernandez and Leandro Paredes are the two players that are one yellow card away from missing the match versus Brazil. With Enzo set to start versus Uruguay, and that's going to be a battle, this could be a real thing for him. He could end up missing the match versus Brazil.
Yeah.
It's a tough
one. I believe that of course they have to play all in, because it's a match against Uruguay, and in general, when you play with Argentina, you have to go all in. And more taking into consideration that, yeah, of course, Enzo Fernandez is a starter for Argentina, and it's a key piece. Let's say he gets a yellow card, then we can have their Palacios, which is in a good form in Leverkusen, or Lo Celso, or even Paredes can play more as a defensive midfielder, and McAllister even higher. So I think there's not really a big discussion, and I personally don't know until what point Enzo will think in that yellow card through the match. I think it would be a mistake if he thinks, oh, if I get one more yellow card, then I will lose the game against Brazil. That's not the way to approach the game, and I don't think he will do it.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I don't think any player is gonna whether it's Paredes or Enzo. And to be honest with you, I don't think any Argentina player thinks that way in terms of if I'm a yellow card away, I'm gonna pull out of a challenge or a tackle. I think they're gonna go all in, and it's the two biggest matches. And for many, maybe outside of maybe South America, dare I say, but Argentina Uruguay, historically speaking, is bigger than Argentina Brazil. Am I right in saying that, Osvaldo? Am I right, everybody, or am I?
I mean, historically, you would say yes.
Right.
Historically, yes. In the last couple of years, I would say in the last couple of decades, the big classic or the big
Yeah.
clash was between Argentina and Brazil. But yeah, I think the first game ever uh, from Argentina was against Uruguay.
So
The first
and the World
final
Cup
of the
final.
World Cup was Argentina Uruguay. So yeah, for sure it's the Rio de la Plata
Yeah.
clash, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be a good one. I remember what I was gonna say before.
Yes,
That
of
is
course.
that yeah, we sometimes say, oh, we play Brazil, we play Uruguay, but if you go to Uruguayan media or to Brazilian media or to the fans in general, they're even more scared to play against us.
Of
And I
course.
think that's the way we have to look at it too. Because we're like, oh, we play against Uruguay and then we have to play there against Brazil. But Brazil is scared because they play against Colombia with just 7 points out of the possible 12 in Colombia, in Barranquilla. And then they have to go and play Argentina in their house, in their home, knowing that all the pressure is going to be for them to win there at home. And if they lose against Argentina, it's going to be tough for them.
Oof, it's going to be very, very tough. And you're right. You're right. And obviously, we approach both matches, with respect, of course, definitely. But Uruguay, Brazil, the media, and like you said, and potentially even the fans, no one wants to play against Argentina right now, right? Undefeated since the match with Saudi Arabia, by far, in my opinion, the best team in the world, World Cup champions, the best player in the world. You look at it all, yeah, no one wants to play Argentina, right? So for them, this is a test. We spoke about, maybe a test for Argentina in terms of seeing how big or how small the gap is. This is an even bigger test, like you said, for them as well, right? Um,
For
and
sure.
look at this. There you go, Calvin. Since the Finalissima against Italy, Messi's played 18 matches for Argentina and scored 25 goals and 7 assists. That is
Wow.
ridiculous. At 35 and 36 years old, or 34 in the Finalissima, I think even. That's a joke of a number. A joke of a number. Miguel says, I confess I enjoy Brazil's struggle. I do too. I do as
Me
well.
too.
I do as well.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
would enjoy it even more if there's actually a chance of Brazil getting eliminated. I don't see it
No.
honestly at all, but yeah, you
Not
always
with
prefer when
not
Brazil
with
is.
this setup. Not with
Yeah,
this World Cup setup. No. All right, and the last thing, or one of the last things, maybe to talk about, you know, so Angelica, yeah, Angelica, the match is tomorrow. It's on Thursday, on the western part of the world, and it's on, I guess, Friday on the eastern part of the world. Um, the last thing, and this is something Emiliano Martinez said, he's very excited to play at La Bombonera. He's never played at La Bombonera, right? The last World Cup qualifier that was there, he didn't play. Franco Armani, if I'm not mistaken, was the goalkeeper versus Venezuela. It wasn't Dibu. So he's gonna get the chance. La Bombonera, we know La Bombonera loves Messi. I'm not saying Monumental doesn't. They absolutely everywhere he goes. We saw the reception he got during the Riquelme's farewell match, and we see the fans every single time at La Bombonera. And you're a Boca fan. Thoughts on this, Osvaldo?
yes, of course. I believe that is, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Boca fan, but one thing is La Bombonera when Boca plays, and another thing is when the national team plays. Because usually when the national team plays, it's more of a family-friendly atmosphere, and that's perfect. It's great, and it's gonna be incredible. But yeah, just the way that the stadium is, it makes it get very close to the players, and it can generate a lot of pressure in the opposite team. But also, if you're not used to, it can also generate pressure in your own team. But the atmosphere is gonna be great, and I think that the players will take a lot of advantage of that. And I'm gonna. So you wanna guess when was the last time that Argentina lost in La Bombonera?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I want to say 90. No, the match in '94 was versus Colombia, but that was at the Monumental. 96, 94, 96.
It was in 1977.
Okay, I'm way off.
Yes,
Not even close.
against Germany. The coach was Menotti, and it was a friendly match.
Oh, wow.
And after that, it was, let me count, 16 to 34. I think it was 18 matches that we haven't lost in La Bombonera. The last three were the win against Venezuela
Yep.
with Scaloni
Earlier
in
this year.
2022. Yes. Then in 2020, we tied against Paraguay. And then we won 1-0 against Ecuador, also in October 2020.
I remember that. Those were the COVID, the pandemic, with no fans.
That's true.
That.
That's true. Yeah, and maybe the one that we remember the most was the one against Peru with Sampaoli as a coach for those qualifiers to 2018. I remember Benedetto playing.
I remember Benedetto. I think that was Fernando Gago's last match too for Argentina.
I remember. Yeah. The famous video talking with.
He couldn't walk and he wanted to keep playing.
I remember.
Yeah. Anthony, all the way from the Philippines. Hello. And Janet, hello, all the way from Toronto as well. 2 tough games. I have confidence. There you go. That's all it's about, right? Thank you guys for the support. Thank you all for showing up. But you mentioned the pressure, and it's. I mean, the Argentina is used to the pressure, and I think they do well, and I think they're going to enjoy their time at La Bombonera. Someone like Paredes, he's back home, right? Boca player. Cavani was called up originally for Uruguay, but he got injured and he got replaced by Suarez. But yeah, it's going to be a fun atmosphere. It's always different, and I always enjoy. Not that I don't like when they play at the Monumental, so I don't want anyone to misunderstand that. But it's always good when they play at La Bombonera or they go to Cordoba or Mendoza and they play matches elsewhere, because you see the fans. They don't always get to see these players or see the national team every single year.
Yeah. So, for sure. Of course, the home of Argentina is El Monumental, the River Plate Stadium. And La Bombonera is not that far. It's like, I would say, less than an hour away. And they were actually, first they were going to play at the Monumental because that's the home. But there was a couple of Taylor concerts. So it was not in the conditions. The field, they were going to play in another province, which is always good, as you were saying, for other people from other provinces that are not from Buenos Aires to go and watch the national team, of course. But I think that then the players said that if it was possible to do it in Buenos Aires because they wanted to be close to the family when they come this couple of days. So they ended up saying that they were going to play in La Bombonera, which is going to be a great atmosphere.
Of course, and it always is, and it would be a great atmosphere anywhere in Argentina. And honestly, anywhere Argentina plays. I mean, even when they played in June versus Indonesia, and everyone was Argentina fans there. But yeah, no, the match at La Bombonera is always going to be special. And here's to a good match. Absolutely. I'm not going to ask you for a prediction or maybe not score, but final thoughts. Do you think it's going to be close? You think it's going to be very difficult? What do you think, Osvaldo, and everybody else as well in the chat?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. It's a very good rival. We talked a little bit about it throughout the whole live. You have good players. They have Marcelo Bielsa. It's going to be also interesting to see how the Bombonera receives Marcelo Bielsa. I think they would do it in a great way. But it's going to be a tough match. We were talking about it before the live. You were saying a little bit about how you imagine, based on the Marcelo Bielsa style, that it might be a match with a lot of goals from both sides, or maybe if they don't defend very well, it might be a good match for us. So honestly, of course, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting, but I see it as a tough match, and more if we don't score in the first half, which is something that also characterized Scaloni's team throughout the last years. I think we usually start scoring a goal in the first couple of minutes that give us like being more comfortable with the score, and then based on that 1-0 lead, starting to play better. but it will depend if we are able to score that first goal in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah. No, and absolutely. And yes, we were talking about that off air. I think overall it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's going to be an open game. But yeah, what we were talking about, I said, the Bielsa way, the Marcelo Bielsa way is just attack, 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 attack. No matter the team. We've seen it with the national teams. We've seen it with club teams. It's what he does. And it's not an easy way to play, but it's not an easy way to defend either. If you're going to be Argentina, but I have confidence in our players. And I think it's going to be a very entertaining game, no matter the result. I truly think it's going to be an entertaining game because we're up against a team that, even though they're playing away from home, Bielsa style is, like I said, it's just attack and attack. So,
and let me tell you one more thing that we didn't mention in the lab. Yeah. That is that. So right now we have 4 consecutive wins in the qualifiers, and if we win one more, we reach the best of Argentina streak in qualifiers, that is of 5, and that was in the qualifiers of 2002 with Marcelo Bielsa as a coach. So it's gonna be a good opportunity to tie that streak against the coach that was able to do it with Argentina.
Wow, look, I did not know that. So that's a good one. I was not aware. 5 wins. That's not easy. You're talking about what, 15 points? My math is not completely wrong.
Yeah. 5.3.
So yeah, BC. Nah, see, I'm not too young in that respect. I fully remember watching 2002, the qualifiers. I remember watching the '98 World Cup completely. Miguel, take it easy, buddy. Have a good one, and thank you for joining us, guys. But yeah, no, that 2002 team by Bielsa, they just blitzed through everybody. Guys, go on YouTube after this, watch the highlights. It was a machine of a team. Batistuta, Crespo, Veron, Ortega, Aymar, Kili Gonzalez, everybody. Yeah, so in terms of the predicted 11, there is one that's rumored by TIC Sports. So Emiliano Martinez is the goalkeeper. No surprises. Nicolas Tagliafico, Nicolas Otamendi, Christian Romero, and Molina. In midfield, Enzo, Alexis, and De Paul. And then up front, it's Julian, Nicolas Gonzalez, and obviously Lionel Messi. So it's the 11 we are kind of, used to seeing these days. And I don't think it's much of a surprise to anybody.
Yeah. It's not confirmed yet, but that's the one that they expect. But that's where just between Nico Gonzalez, Andy Maria, and Julian and Lautaro. But it seems that Julian and Nico are gonna start.
Yeah, that's certainly the way it looks like. Calvin says, I think it will be a gritty match, a close game. It easily could be that. You say gritty, I say gritty as well, but I think it's going to be entertaining nonetheless. I truly think so. Truly think so. But yeah, so that was that. Osvaldo, any final thoughts? Anything?
No, I'm just very excited I'm always excited when Argentina plays. But I think these 2 matches in particularly after the World Cup are those that you really sit down and want the team to. I mean, you always want the team to win, but this one against Uruguay and Brazil are gonna be really tough challenges, and it's gonna be really interesting. So yeah, the thing here in the US is that it's tough sometimes to watch the qualifiers. I don't know if you have that same problem in Canada, but yeah, in a way or another, I'm gonna watch the game for sure.
No, for sure. It's the same thing for us, and I believe in the United States, so Canada and US. I think if you want to watch it, it's on Fanatis or Fanatis.
Yeah.
It's through there. But yeah, it's always exciting. We kind of mentioned this before in terms of like these World Cup qualifiers being a little bit different because of the amount of teams that do qualify. But it's still always fun to watch. Calvin, very quickly, thoughts on Pablo Maffeo. I've watched him in the past, but not enough to really, I guess, form an opinion. I don't know if Osvaldo, you've watched him, but
not really. After they called him, I watched some highlights. He's a very physical player, and yeah, him with I think his name is Francisco Ortega, the one that used to play in Vélez.
Yeah,
the ones that were called up. Ortega, if I'm not mistaken, he's a left back, and Maffeo have played in both sides, but I think he's more of a right back. And yeah, I believe that Scaloni is not very happy, I would say, with Foyt is injured, Montiel is recovering from an injury. So yeah, in that right side, he needed to try a couple of players. So yeah, me too. I haven't seen much about Maffeo.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen his matches, obviously, but never really particularly paid too much attention to him. But if he gets some playing time, who knows? We'll get a chance to see him. But on that note, Argentina versus Uruguay on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Buenos Aires time, local time there. We're gonna do a post show, right? Osvaldo, confirming.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So join us, everybody, for that as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here, whether it was live or watching us on replay. Always, very appreciated. So thank you for that. And hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button. We're going to be live tomorrow after the game. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll do another one of these tomorrow. Argentina versus Uruguay. We'll see what gives. Take care, everybody.